Stories that matter. The journey of life from birth to death is an extraordinary trip, sometimes filled with great joy and excitement, but at other times filled with pain, sorrow, and disappointment. Stories That Matter shares both extremes with you. Sometimes our stories will make you feel very happy, but the journey of life is not all happiness. Other times, the journey of life will make you feel sad, for all of us have experienced both extremes. Stories That Matter will begin right after the break with a story that will touch your heart in the journey of life.
Welcome to Stories That Matter. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my special guest today, somebody I've been wanting to talk to for a while. He's from Idaho, and it's Jeff, help me.
Zmuda.
You got it. Zmuda. And Jeff and I were talking for quite a while because we were visiting here at the studio before we went on the air. And Jeff, I know you came in from Idaho, and you've been involved in corrections in Idaho for about 30 years?
Yeah, a little over 30 years. Yep,
and
Doug.
When you started in the corrections in Idaho, what level did you start at?
I started as an entry-level position in the maintenance and construction group with the Department of Corrections in Idaho.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
If you're going to wind up being, as you are now, the Secretary of Corrections in Kansas, and I think it's fantastic if you can say, you know what, I know how that broom works. Yep. I know how we change these bulbs and how what we do down here, every position right on up to the top. I think that's tremendous for you.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every bit of my career with Idaho.
And you worked there 30 years?
Over 30 years, yes.
And then an opportunity came up that you were the assistant director, is that what it's called?
Yeah, I was the deputy director in Idaho,
director.
Yep, at the end of my career there.
And then you had an opportunity to maybe apply at Kansas. You did so, and Kansas was immediately interested.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to have a conversation with some folks here in Kansas. They had an opening here for the secretary position, had a need to fill, and the more I talked to them, and it seems like the more they talked to me, it seemed like it might be a good fit. And so Governor extended an offer to me to come and serve here as the secretary, and I accepted, and I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you here because I've heard lots of good things from both parties, and that's tremendous. I know you've been through that process. It hasn't been confirmed yet because the legislature hasn't met in session yet. Am I right about that?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And so the position, is it what you thought it would be? Are you any surprises in it?
Well, I think there's always a few surprises, but it's pretty much what I had been led to believe it would be. That great people working in the organization, really have the heart for it, really the dedication to do a great job and protect our communities and help the people that come to our custody. I've seen that in all of our work units. And then the challenges. We've got some pretty significant challenges, and some of them are maybe a little greater than I thought that way. Maybe that's where some of the surprises have been. But we're game for taking on those challenges, and I think we got the right people to do it.
What's the biggest challenges that you have encountered right now, or that you anticipate you will be encountering?
Some of the challenges that were here when I got here and are still here in varying degrees since I came. I've been here 4 months, not quite 5 months. We had some significant issues with retaining our uniformed staff, our correctional officers in our facilities. That got better just prior to my arrival. The legislature and Governor Kelly provided some additional funding to improve those some pay increases for those staff, and that improved our vacancy rate dramatically. We were able to retain and recruit staff, so that's made that a lot better. It's still an issue for us today, but it's a lot better than it was 6 or 8 months ago even.
So that would be what we're talking about there, would be primarily the guards?
Yeah, the correctional officers.
Correctional officers.
Yes.
And they, of course, are, they have to make a living too for their family, so if there's jobs outside the prison that are paying better money, they're taking those. And then you're retraining somebody. And in this case here, Governor Kelly increased the salaries for those, and so that helped take care of a problem there.
It did. The governor and the legislature approved that funding, and it made a dramatic difference immediately. Immediately we saw the difference. That and then our overcrowding in our prison system is probably the two biggest challenges that we have. We don't have enough space for all the people. We have some capacity issues not only the ability to house people, but the ability to provide the programming and the education services and the workforce training opportunities to help them prepare for successful reentry back into the community. We just don't have the resources to meet that great of a need in the population. So we've got some work to do there to increase our capacity.
And how many prison facilities are there?
There's 9.
9?
Yeah, 9.
And from one end of the state to the other?
Yes, to include a juvenile facility that we operate in Topeka. Yes, one in the state to the other.
And then how many offenders are in the prison system, approximately?
Yeah, there's about 10,000 approximately.
That's a lot of people, and
it is a lot of people
to be responsible for. Out of that 10,000, what percentage of those would at some point in time likely be released, will have served their sentence and be released?
It'll be in the high 90%.
So most of the people.
Yes, that's
okay.
Correct.
All right. We're going to cut away, take a break. We are watching Stories That Matter. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. I'm Doug Thompson with my special guest, Jeff Zmuda of the Kansas Secretary of Corrections office, and he is the Secretary of Corrections. So Jeff, let's go forward for a minute in here. Okay, I'm in prison now, and we've just talked about high 90% of the people who are offenders that are in prison now will eventually be released because they will have finished their sentence, however many years that is. So now I'm going to be getting released, and I've been in prison for 30 years, and now I'm walking out. I don't have any. What happens to me? I don't have any family that's left anymore, or my family is now grown. They were little kids at the time, and now they're grown, and I have nowhere to go. How do you address those concerns that happen for people? I'm not skilled anymore. All I was a laborer before, and and now I used to do concrete and stuff. And now I'm too old to do it. What happens to me?
Well, when people come into the system, Doug, the first thing we do is assess them. When they come into our reception and diagnostic unit, and we do a series of assessments to determine what their needs are. You know, that might be an education need. It might be they have some health, or whether it be physical health or behavioral health needs. What kind of job skills do they have? What kind of programming do they need, whether it be alcohol and drug treatment, maybe some other kind of programming to help their needs. So we'll assess them, and then the goal is to try to get those needs, to the degree possible, get those needs met while they're with us. Try to plug them into programming, work opportunity, training opportunity, education opportunity, to help meet those needs and prepare them for that potential release back into the community that so many of them will experience. One of the challenges we have is not quite enough resources to meet all that need, but to the degree we can, we do that. So what we want to do is get those needs met and then try to get them into some kind of a workforce readiness. One of the big factors returning into the community is that can promote success for these folks is to be able to obtain and hold a job, something that they could support themselves. So we'll try to get them in a work opportunity either inside one of our facilities, and we have quite a few inside our facilities. We have some private partnerships with private companies that are in and working with our men and women, or if they're at a low enough custody facility, like a minimum custody, and they're getting closer to release, we have some work opportunities and release opportunities out in the community where they can be working at a job and then they return back to the facility. Trying to get them to earn a little money, pay their fines and fees and restitution, try to get all that cleared up before they're released, and then maybe build a bank account. We have a forced savings that they have to save a certain amount of that money, so they have a little money to help them with their rent, or maybe to get some transportation. Transportation and housing are two other big factors that can contribute to the success of someone. So we do all that within the Department of Correction, try to prepare them. When we get them out in the community, We have, if they're under community supervision, we have our staff out there that are supervising them and monitoring the activities and are also trying to help them be successful, guiding them, giving them advice, pointing them in the right direction where there might be jobs available or where they might be able to find housing. Just kind of a support for them. If they relapse, if they have a drug and alcohol relapse, need to get back into some form of treatment, our staff have the means to do that, get them back into that, to kind of help them stay on the right path. We have all that. Then what we have is an important factor, and I mentioned it just a little bit with our private industry partners. We also have a number of volunteers that come into our facilities and have a connection with our population and really have the heart for helping them not only turn their life around while they're in prison, but try to help them transition back into the community. We have a formalized mentoring program where we pair someone from the community up with, sometimes it's multiple people in our system, to kind of be a resource for them upon their release and use their social connections to help introduce them to folks out in the community, help them be successful. All that coming together really can help promote that person, a greater chance of that person being successful upon their return to the community.
Are those that you have just described, are those already in place now?
They
or are some of these some things that you brought in with your concept from Idaho? Here's what we've done there. Here's what I saw when I was in maintenance and guard and right on up the ladder. And these are some of the things that I want to implement for Kansas.
Some of that stuff was in Idaho when I was there, but I'm happy to tell you that stuff, all that I talked about, was already here when I came to Kansas. I'm pleased to tell you. People are already working hard to help these folks change their lives, become a better citizen, and get back out in the community and be successful. Be good neighbors.
I like that philosophy, Jeff, of that what you do for the least you do for me. Yeah. I like that philosophy. Many of those, the people watching this course today, many of them would not even know that those programs exist. I kind of want to go back through some of it. I go into the prison system, I've got 5th grade education, and that's all I've got. I was sitting in the principal's office for years and got kicked out when I was an 8th grader, and I'm just out on my own. So what's available for that educational program that you're talking about? Would there be something in the prison that would say, we'll work with you to help you with your basic education?
Absolutely. We have adult basic education to include, they can get their GED, their high school equivalency degree. They can get some high school credits. There's even some limited at this point college credits. We're looking to try to expand that college because the workforce out there requires that. That post-secondary education is getting more and more important. Not necessarily a 4-year degree, but some kind of vocational or maybe a 2-year type degree to be able to hold a meaningful, sustainable job. You have to kind of have those skills. So we're looking to expand that if we can.
That's excellent, Jeff. And if I take that situation there with the skills, so if I said, I want to be a welder, there may be a company in one of these one of the facilities. There may be a company that's connected with that say, we will send somebody in and we'll teach a class to 15 people or something along those lines of how to do welding. Or is this like an economic development zone within the prison where they can work in the prison and they're working as a welder, learning those skills?
Well, it's a little bit of both. So we partner with the community colleges throughout the state and some other entities to help us with our educational component, and I believe that component handles the training in the welding program. But we have those private partners who have industries, in some instances within the fences and some instances outside the fences, and our men and women, once they're trained in a certain skill, they can often transition to one of those private entities, and those private entities will hire them, employ them, put them to work, utilizing that skill while they're incarcerated, and then frequently they'll transition as that person comes out of prison. Those companies will either hire them and have them come to work for them as a regular employee, or in some instances they help find placement for them, maybe with a competitor if they don't have an opening.
All right. We're going to cut away, take a break, Jeff. You're watching Stories That Matter. Welcome back to Stories That Matter. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my special guest, Jeff Zmuda, and Secretary of Corrections for the state of Kansas. Came in from Idaho. Jeff, you married?
I am married.
And how many kids you got?
I have 3 sons.
And did the sons travel in with you?
They
Were
did.
they older and on their own?
They're in their 20s. They're off doing kind of their own thing, still finding their way in life, growing up.
All right. You got grandkids yet?
No grandkids yet. Okay. Hopeful one day.
Oh, there will be.
Hopefully
I'm sure there will.
day.
With 3 boys, you'll have grandkids.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit while we were on break about the idea that, okay, an individual comes out, maybe they've come into the prison system and they had the equivalent of a 5th grade education. Now, because they've been there a while through the program on the inside, they've now earned a GED, and they have earned it. It's not just given to them, they have earned it. And so they get a GED, and now they walk out of the program, and in some cases it may be a situation where you have worked with this company over here while you've been in here. They have an opening for you, and so that would be the best arrangement. They could go from the prison and go to a private sector for a job that they've already been doing while they were on the inside.
That's correct. That's correct.
Happens.
That does happen.
That's the best arrangement.
That's a great
But then
scenario.
they're just not left alone over there because you mentioned that there's a mentor group that's on the outside. So that may be somebody kind of like we think about Alcoholic Anonymous, and so they may have a support group. And so this would be a mentor on the outside that will come by and check on them every now and then. How can I help you? What do you got going? What sort of a problem you having? Because it can feel like a pretty big problem when you say, I can't find an ID to get a driver's license. I don't know how to do this. I don't know. And some of it can be real simple the mentor can say, I'll help you. Here's where the office is for this. And I'll meet you down there. We'll get you going through for the driver's license and we'll get these things taken care of. And just to help them to navigate again. Is that consistent?
It is. That mentor program it's a formalized, established program that people express an interest in participating in. We're always out looking for mentors to help. There's a training component to it and a screening component, and those mentors come into our facilities initially to establish that relationship. So when that person is released, they already have that relationship, and it's a relationship. It's, hey, if you're struggling, need some help, give me a call. If you need some guidance or something, or if you need to find a job, you need to relocate your housing, I might be able to introduce you to someone and help you. And that support, those little things you mentioned, the driver's license. Having a proper identification in this day and age, can't get a job without proper identification. Those little things make a huge difference in the lives of people returning back to the community. And it's good public safety for us to take an interest in making sure they can get access to those things to the greatest extent possible, because absent that, they're subject to go back to old ways and not be successful.
It's easy to get discouraged. I didn't have a driver's license. Now I got a driving while suspended. It sort of snowballs. I can't get my license. I can't go to work. And then you just sort of get frustrated and it feels like this world's just too heavy for me.
Sure can happen that way.
Yeah. Now, there's been in the news recently about what Oklahoma has done. They went a program that released a number of prisoners back into their communities that they felt were ready to do that. Are you generally familiar with the concept that they're talking about?
I know a little bit about it. I don't know all the details of it, but I have a good idea what they did. Yeah.
And are you, in your capacity now, is that something you, not that you're implementing, but is that something you're going to be looking into to see if that's a possibility to reduce the number of offenders or inmates?
Well, it can be. So really the legislature and the governor make those decisions, and I think my role is to help get legislators and the governor the information they need to make a well-informed decision on something like that. And certainly that's a role that we're ready and willing to play. And that's one component. The release, like Oklahoma did, is one idea out of many that are out there to try to look at, is there a different way to reduce our population in a smart way that doesn't create risk, additional risk for our communities and our citizens. Yeah. And I know there's the Kansas Sentencing Commission, the Kansas Criminal Justice Commission are working on some suggestions. We've got a couple national entities, the Council of State Governments and the National Governors Association are in here, and we're going to get, the legislature and the governor are going to have a lot of suggestions before them this next session, right after the first of the year, that I think they can consider, and whatever works best for Kansas, I'm sure that we'll implement.
Yeah. Are there some programs that you were involved in Idaho that you want to try to implement in Kansas, or at least refine or adjust that might be something that would work in Kansas because it worked in Idaho?
I think, well, again, one of the things I'm really happy about here in Kansas is we're using evidence-based practices in our programs, so there's some data behind them that say that they work. That's a really good thing. We also have some other programs that are good to help people, support people, create hope in our facilities. You know, the absence of hope is despair, and that hope is important to our population, believing that there is life after their incarceration. So we have a pretty good mix of that. I don't know that there's anything completely new or different that I would implement. What I'd like to be able to do is to increase our capacity, our ability to do more of some of the good stuff that's already occurring in our facilities.
You feel like you have the support from everywhere you need? The legislature's been receptive to working with you, and certainly the governor has, and you feel comfortable with the organization that's in place, that I can come in and say, here's my suggestion, and it will get exposure and some debate going on with it?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone I've encountered in decision maker level, whether it be a legislator, the governor and her staff, judges, prosecutors, everybody is coming to the table looking for solutions, and I've not encountered anybody that wasn't looking to try to say, hey, is there a better way to do this?
And that's fantastic. I know you probably haven't had much chance yet to get out like you probably did in Idaho and do some fishing and some hunting and some of those things, because I suspect you've been pretty busy. But I bet you'll get around to some of that. You can't come from Idaho and get to Kansas and say, I quit all the other stuff.
No.
We're going to cut away, take a break. We'll be right back. Right Track Foundation is a very special prison ministry. 96% of prisoners will be released back into society. Right Track is a Christ-based program working within the Ellsworth Prison in Kansas, dedicated to helping offenders develop a relationship with Jesus, learn a trade, learn how to work, and how to become a productive, God-honoring member of their community. Check us out. Contact us. Remember, Jesus said, what you do for the least, you do for me. That's Right Track Foundation. Welcome back to Stories That Matter. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my special guest, Jeff Zmuda of the Kansas Secretary of Corrections. And Jeff, I've enjoyed having you here.
It's been great to be here, Doug. It's been great to be here.
You know, I know that you're going to want to be involved in some activities. I know you were a fisherman and as a young man did hunting, but more fishing now. There's some wonderful fishing spots in Kansas. And I know from what we were talking about, haven't had a chance to get out there because there's so many things to do. But you were telling me as we were off screen, one of the things I'm really impressed with is the staff that's working with me, the organization that's in place. And so I'm not coming into a situation that is just chaos. It is not. And I'm coming into it and have the good core people, and we're all working together. Does it feel that way to you?
It certainly does. It certainly does. There's a good culture in our organization. People really have the want to do a great job. They want to help protect their communities. They want to help change the lives of the people that are in our custody, and I see it everywhere I go. And so that's good. That's a big part of being able to achieve those objectives and the mission that our organization has. So I feel really, really good about the staff in the organization and the leaders that we have there.
I think it's awesome. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this progresses for you, because I get the privilege to go to the prison in Ellsworth as part of Right Track Ministry. I see what's being done, and I think it's fantastic. Jeff, thank you so much.
Very nice. Thank you, Doug.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Hope you've enjoyed watching Stories That Matter with Jeff Zmuda.